Hi, welcome to Right to Top. I'm Adam. In today's video, we're going to look at the past perfect tense. Okay, this is a everyday, very commonly used tense, and for some reason, people just find it to be a very tricky tense, whether in reading and especially when it comes to writing. Okay, I know that all of you have studied this pretty early on in your ESL education, but many people still find it tricky. So we're going to look at it and make sure we know how to use it, when we don't have to use it, etc., and look at some examples. Okay, so we're going to start by the basics. How do you put together a past perfect tense? Well, very simple, very straightforward. You have your had, helping verb, auxiliary verb, plus your past participle verb. So for example, eat, simple past ate, past participle eaten, right? So the third verb. Had, eaten. So Tom had offered to help, but Jim refused. So before Jim refused, Tom had offered to help, or in the past. So everything is happening in the past. Basically, what you need to remember about the past perfect, and this is the most important element of this tense, is that you're always showing a sequence, or you're showing a chronological relationship, a relationship based on time and order of time, and about things that happened in the past, okay? It has to be between at least two or more actions, situations, events in the past. So everything happened in the past. You're going to have one simple past verb. You have to have one simple past because that is the verb that's used to basically reference the time or be an anchor or show you everything is in relation to this. And then you're going to see what happened before this, what happened after this. Okay, so you have an anchor point. You have a point that is definite. We know when it happened. Then you're going to have another action or another situation that happened before the first action. So when you go before and you're going further back in time, you're going to use the past perfect. When you start going forward again, still in the past, but ahead of the first one, then you're going simple past. So, for example, when I arrived home. So I arrived home, simple past. This is my time frame, my reference point. When I arrived home, the pizza I had ordered, means I ordered it before I came home. At the office, I called the pizza place. I said, send me a pizza. And then I left my office. I arrived home. The pizza that I called for before, that I had ordered before, arrived. I arrived home. The pizza arrived. Okay? Then, when I went to eat it, my roommate asked if he could have a piece. Even though, so he asked for a piece, even though he had eaten before, right? So, if I'm going forward, but in the past, simple past. If I'm going backwards, I'm going to the past perfect. Now, let me make this a little bit easier for you. Let's look at a graph, okay? You have basically the time situation. So you have your present time, and when we're looking at the past perfect, everything is in the past. And it's always going to be at least two situations. So I have the red bar will represent the past perfect. The blue bar will represent the simple past, okay? So let's look at that same sentence. When I got home, simple past, the pizza I had ordered, I ordered it before, arrived after I got home. So arrived home, had ordered, arrived, okay? My roommate asked, so I arrived, the pizza arrived, my roommate asked, so I'm going forward in time, simple past, simple past, simple past, if he could have some of it, some of the pizza, even though he had already had his dinner. He had his dinner before I sat down with my pizza. So now I'm going backwards again, okay? Forward, simple past. Backward, past perfect. That's essentially how you're going to use the past perfect, okay? If you're going backward in time in relation to another action, past perfect. If you're going forward in relation to that action, but still in the past, simple past. Of course, there are some situations where you're going to use the simple present as well, or the past perfect, but I'll explain those as we go. So going backward, past perfect. Going forward, simple past. Now, let's look at a few examples. The earthquake occurred last Monday. Last Monday, we have the time expression. We know exactly when. And we have a simple past verb. It happened at this time. Done. There was much destruction and many people lost their homes and businesses. Again, I'm going forward. Earthquake, destruction, lost homes. Scientists had not been able to predict this disaster. So before the earthquake, scientists couldn't predict it. Earthquake, before it, they couldn't predict it, which was why no one was prepared when it came. Okay? And then I'm going forward again, simple past. Based on the results of the market research. Now, another thing about the past perfect, remember, it's a tool. It's going to put things in order for you, but you still have to pay attention to what else is going on in the sentence. Based on the results of the market research they had commissioned, the company decided to raise the price of their new smartphone line. So before they raised the price, before they made this decision, so they decided, before that, they had commissioned market research. Okay? Basically, what is their decision based on? The market research, which was done before they made the decision. They had been worried. So before the market research, before they commissioned it, they had been worried about losing market share. But when they received the report, they were pleased to discover that customers did not mind the new policies given the promised quality of the new phones. Now, did not mind is basically reported speech. So here's the report. Oh, customers don't mind. But I'm telling you what happened in the situation. When you have reported speech, you go 1/10 back. And I'll explain that in a moment as well, separately. John hadn't even considered a career in marketing until his uncle's partner offered him a position in his Hong Kong office. So his uncle's partner offered him a position. Before that, he hadn't even considered a career in marketing. As his dream had always been to travel the world, this opportunity was not one he could pass up. So here's the opportunity. His dream before this day had always been to travel. Here's his opportunity. He couldn't pass it up. He took the job in Hong Kong. Okay, let's go on. Now, the reason I'm giving you all these situations where you have to understand exactly what's going on, you have to a little bit read between the lines, read between the verbs, is because for those of you taking a test, IELTS, TOEFL, CAE, whatever, you're going to have readings and they're going to test you on your knowledge or on your ability to recognize a chronology based on the verbs used in the reading, right? So for example, many students only find out in their first year of college that certain high school courses they hadn't paid much attention to are actually critical to their academic success. So the question is, many students are not properly prepared for college. True or false? Well, this is true. Why? Because in high school, they didn't pay attention to certain courses that they need in college, right? So they only find out in their first year of college, so that courses they hadn't paid much attention to before coming to college or in high school are actually critical to their academic success. Now, I could say high school is the past time, but again, it's all in relation to their first year. They find out in their first year that certain high school courses they had in high school, they didn't pay attention to. Okay? So that's the thing. You have to understand the relationships and basically the general meaning of the sentence. Let's look back at the example I gave you before. When I got home, the pizza I had ordered arrived. My roommate asked if he could have some of it, even though he had already had his dinner. So the question is, or the statement is, my roommate was hungry. True or false? Well, this is a little bit tricky. You're thinking, well, he wants to eat, so he must be hungry. But no, before the pizza came or before I started to eat my pizza, he had already had his dinner. It means he's not hungry. He's just, greedy, or he likes pizza and he just wanted to eat some anyway. So he's not hungry. So my roommate was hungry. False. He had had his dinner. He's not hungry. He just wants to have a pizza. It's a snack for him, okay? Because pizza you can always have. Doesn't matter how full you are. I know, for me anyway. So let's look at a few other things. Now, when we want to add an adverb into the situation, right? I had plus adverb plus past participle. So you put it between the helping verb had and the main verb in the past participle. I had not been informed. So not is the adverb. I had already been informed. Okay? So you put it between. When you're making a question, you have the helping verb first, your subject in the middle, your main verb. Had he received the memo? Now, here are a couple other situations where we use the past perfect to talk about an unrealistic past conditional. If subject had past participle verb, Subject would have past participle verb. If I had known you were coming, I'd have baked a cake. Now, the reason we use had known, would have baked is because all of this is in the past. You can't change the past. So it's basically unrealistic. If I had known, but I didn't know, so I didn't bake a cake. Okay? So we're putting the whole thing as a hypothetical situation. If I had known. Now, I mentioned before the indirect or the reported speech. So remember, when you're reporting what someone else said, or when you're giving a report on what a survey found out or a research found out, you're basically reporting it. So you're going 1/10 back. So Fred told me. So Fred came to me and Fred said, I studied philosophy before switching to marketing. So now I go to somebody else and I say, Fred told me. And when I'm reporting what someone else said or what someone other research concluded, I'm always going to go 1/10 back from what they used. Fred told me he had studied philosophy. Fred said to me, I studied. I'm telling to somebody else he had studied. So 1/10 back. So if someone says something in the present tense, you go to the past. If someone says something in the past tense, you go to the past perfect. Okay. I will create a different lesson, a different video lesson for this particular aspect of grammar anyway. But just so you know, that's another use of the past perfect. Now, here you have a situation. Do you use perfect, past perfect, or simple past tense? When you have time adverbs using when, the thing you have to understand, the clause of when, the adverb clause using when, will take the simple past. And also remember that this clause, this adverb clause of time, can also be the time marker. So I had an example before, last Monday. So when I started work this week, right? So you can have the same idea. When as a time expression. She had just put down the phone when a truck pulled into her lane in front of her. So here's the truck. Just before the truck came, she had put down her phone, right? So almost at the same time, the when will take the simple past. The action that happened just before it will take the past perfect. The client had left when I arrived at the office. So I arrived. Before I arrived, the client had left, okay? If I said the client left when I arrived, means I arrived and then the client left. So remember, if you're going back in time, past perfect. If you're going forward in time, simple past. Jennifer's father bought her a car as a graduation gift. He promised to do so when she started college, or he had promised to do so when she started college. Both are okay in this case. When she started college, this is a time expression now. I'm pointing to the particular time in the past, the definite past time, and I'm saying what happened at this past time. So started college and promised happened at the same time. Or you could say he had promised in relation to bought. So he bought her the car when she graduated. Before he bought her the car, he had promised to do so. So again, depends which one you want to relate to. Both could be okay. Both will essentially mean the same thing. So it's up to you whether to use it or not. If you prefer not to use the past perfect when you don't have to, don't. But again, for those of you taking IELTS or TOEFL, you want to use this tense whenever you can. You want to show them your ability to use different tenses in different situations. Okay, so that's a good thing to do. Now, when you have adverbs, time adverbs, clauses using before, after, as soon as, by the time, etc., these particular expressions already create the relationship of sequence, of chronology. So in this case, you don't need to use the past perfect. You can if you want to. Before they graduated, each student had to submit a final paper or had to submit a final paper. Both okay. The before already tells you the relationship of the two, of graduated and submit. So the before tells you which came first, which came second. The past perfect, not necessary. By the time. By the time means that the time and then before this time, basically. I'll do a different lesson on by the time and until. By the time prices rose to sustainable levels, many companies had already gone bankrupt. Many companies already went bankrupt before the prices rose. So by the time prices rose, Something had already happened, something already happened. So before, by the time, as soon as, already established a relationship, you don't need the past perfect to do it for you. Other time indicators. The leaders agreed to meet again even though their previous meeting had ended badly. Even though their previous meeting ended badly. Previous means the one that happened before. So again, I don't need to use the past perfect. I already know the relationship of the two different meetings. We had owned that building for 50 years. We owned that building for 50 years. When you say owned that building for 50 years, it's understood that you don't own it anymore. But to be clear, we had owned something that happened for over a long time and came to an end in the past. If you're making the situation relative to the present or the future, I had wanted to go back to school, but it looks like I'll have to let that idea go now. So here I'm using the past perfect with a simple present. What is understood? I had wanted to go back to school before I got this job offer, but it looks like I'll have to let that idea go now. That idea means going back to school. This is what I had thought until something happened to make me change my mind. Okay, so that's the key here. You changed your mind based on something that has recently happened. That's obvious or doesn't need to be mentioned. And then you go on with a present situation or future situation, etc. Now, for some reason, and I'm sometimes I'm not sure why it is, but I know that it happens a lot, and it happens to native English speakers as well. Had. People have a very difficult time with had. But you need to remember that have, the verb to have, has many uses. So when you have had, you still have your first had is just the helping verb of the past perfect, and your second had is just the past participle of have, right? So have, if you have to do something, or possession, or availability, or I have a test next week, or a situation, it's just regular use of the have, and you're putting into the past participle. Lynn had many friends, but since she married Larry, many of them have deserted her. So she married Larry. Before this marriage, she had. Okay, let me put it another way. Lynn has many friends. Okay, has. You understand? She has many friends. Now I'm just looking at everything in the past. She had many friends. Okay? But now I'm saying that when did she lose all these friends? When she got married. Before she got married, she had many friends. And the same thing applies to any situation with had. Helping verb had, past participle, main verb of have. Okay, very straightforward. Try not to let it confuse you. Just practice with it a little bit. It will come to you. And that's basically it. Okay, so I hope that was a little bit clear, and I hope you can use your past perfect a little bit better now. Remember, it's a tool. It's there to help you show chronology, to help the reader understand what happened first, what happened second, what's the relationship between events, actions, situations, etc. If you're doing the IELTS, TOEFL, CAE, or any of these English tests, try to use the past perfect in your writing, especially in your speaking, if you can as well. It'll give you some extra points. Okay. If you have any questions about any of this, please ask in my YouTube comment section, and I'll get to you at some point. And if you like this video, please give me a like. If you liked it a lot, please subscribe to my channel. I'll have lots of other videos on grammar, writing, test preparation, all kinds of other good stuff. Okay. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.